Congratulations, you've made it to Monday afternoon and 2 minutes. Maybe that's more about me. I'm feeling happy to have made it all the way to Monday afternoon. My name is Jacob Yarrow. I am the director of the Green Music Center at Sonoma State University in the North Bay of California. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm also a member of the APAP Board of Directors and the Classical Connections Committee, which oversees a number of things and helps to inform our Young Performers Career Advancement Program, also known as YPCA, which is part of our inspiration for being here today. YPCA is 30 years old. Yeah, that's like we applied for that because it's crazy that anything is 30 years old in our field, right? It's really a remarkable accomplishment. It's contributed a ton. So many remarkable artists have been a part of YPCA and its focus of helping emerging artists in the Western classical tradition, though I think we've seen over time how that has evolved and what that means, but still out of the Western classical tradition, and engaging them in our field to be a part of it. I think the first YPCA program was in 1995, which is great that we're still here celebrating it. We have remarkable alums of the program, including a couple of us on stage, and we wanted to use some of the celebration of YPCA to then also talk about just the practice of working with emerging artists, emerging art forms, and how we welcome folks into our field and the great advantages of doing that. So I'm going to talk too much probably, I apologize, but I'm going to now ask my colleagues to introduce themselves and say just a few words, and then I'll bother you some more. My friend.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ichun Ye. I'm the VP and Director of Sales at SOZO. I don't have immediate connection to YPCA, except that I moved to this country to become the greatest violinist in the world, and didn't happen. So here I am, and did not get into YPCA, but is very honored to be invited to be on this panel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karla Donehew Pérez. I'm a violinist in the Catalyst Quartet, and I'm also on faculty at the Longy School of Music, Bard College. Catalyst Quartet was part of YPCA, I believe, in 2011.
We're going with that. We like 2011
yes.
as a date.
And I'm Steve Hoffman. I'm the executive director of the Norton Center for the Arts at Center College in Danville, Kentucky. And I am also on faculty at the Department of Arts Administration for the University of Kentucky. And I have been part of Classical Connections since 2011 and probably YPCA 2012.
Thank you all for joining us. I want to ask y'all some questions to know a little bit about who's here, and I encourage you to holler at us and say what you need to know if that is appropriate at some point during this. It's always tricky when you're asked to be here to try to figure out, like, well, what is truly helpful to the folks that will assemble? So guide me if you have any guidance as we go forward. So lots of us do lots of things. I'm going to ask you just to let me know. Are you a presenter? There we go. Are you an artist, manager, or agent? Love it. Are you an artist? Love it. Are you a producer? And I see lots of hands go up for lots of things. That is the nature of our world. Are you a student? Some students.
Everyone raise their hand. We're all students, right?
Yes. Are you an enrolled student in some sort of school as well? Are you one of Steve's students? We have two faculty members here. Remarkable. One of the things that I love about being here at APAP, and I'll talk some about both my personal history and YPCA history and its intertwining. But one of the things I really love about being here, and I've just come from the APAP Award ceremony, I'm lucky to teach an Emerging Leadership Institute here for APAP. It's one of the primary things is just the deep feeling of connection to our history, to our lineage, to our ancestry that this field is built on, where APAP is about to celebrate 70 years itself. It has a long and remarkable history of so many individuals who have helped to support the arts ecosystem in our country, right? And we build on the work of so many remarkable artists and arts workers. I really feel grateful. That's one of the main things I feel as I experience this time in New York every year, is just the gratitude for being part of this community, taking inspiration from all of you, from the YPCA program, from the awards, from the leadership institutes, and the way that we just work together to build connections and welcome new people into our field. It's a remarkable thing. I feel just very lucky, and I thank you all for being a part of it and allowing me to be a part of it. Thanks for the whoop. I love it. I'm just pausing to let you all make noise. I came to my first conference in 1998, which I think was the third year of YPCA, 95, 96, and 98. There was no conference in 1997 because December 1996 was a conference, and then we moved to January. There's some ancestry and history, because I am definitely post-young sitting here in front of you. But I was in a saxophone quartet, and we were in the YPCA group with the Pacifica Quartet, an ongoing concern, remarkable artist. I had gotten off the road with a different group and was trying to figure out what to do with my life and living in Washington, D.C., and I got hired to work for APAP while I was here, like basically the same day we did our showcase. Got hired to work for APAP, quit the band. The band's long gone, but it certainly advanced my career, and within a few years I was running the YPCA program as an APAP staffer and have gone on to other jobs, but have been super involved with the program as part of the Classical Connections Committee almost that entire time. The Classical Connections is the bigger project that YPCA falls under, and began in the mid-90s as well, with some funding and the idea of offering some support for Western classical traditions, both by offering some training on aesthetics and presenting practices, largely to presenters, though a wide variety of folks were involved in those projects, and the Young Performers Support Initiative at the time. It changed names later. And that has continued. You heard Steve mention the Classical Connections Committee, a group that it helps to organize this convening, helped to organize a convening on Friday morning in advance of the conference, those sorts of things. So if you have interest in getting involved there, come talk to me or Steve. We're always looking for new folks to get involved, and obviously I've been on it too long, so you can come and add some new ideas to it. I've mentioned a few artists that came through YPCA, Imani Wins being one of them, great Catalyst Quartet. I just presented the Moreau Quartet last month. They were part of it. 8th Blackbird was part of it. Tessa Lark, so many remarkable folks over the years. And part of it was a showcase here in the city, and of a bunch of different educational programs, so workshops about how does all this work, and honestly just sort of the shock of seeing this enormous conference in action was illuminating to me as a young artist the first time I came here with my manager, and I think lots of folks have had that same experience. So we're really proud of that, and I think I'll ask Karla to tell us a little about her YPCA experience, how it affected you and the Catalyst Quartet.
Yes, thank you. You know, when the Catalyst Quartet started, we had very strong ideas about what we wanted to do and what it meant to be a string quartet and what it meant to be an American string quartet and all of these wonderful ideas. And I think we have really solidified this sort of mission and the things that we want to do. But YPCA was kind of like the starting point for us to put it all together, because we had a lot of ideas and a lot of strong convictions and values. And within that, I mean, how many days is it usually? It's like a week? 3, 5, yeah. We were able to kind of like package it all in a really specific and professional way. I think it was sort of the starting point for us to be able to see ourselves from sort of above, objectively, as a product, which is, I know, is a kind of a, can feel sometimes like a distant or, you know, unemotional thing for an artist.
Even yucky, right?
Yeah.
Big time.
But the reality is that it is a business. You are a product. You're selling a product. And so being able to kind of have the time to do that, and then to hear from other artists, to hear from presenters, to practice presenting this product. It was really like the seed that helped everything else grow. So, I mean, it was a wonderful experience for us.
Are there any specific things that jump to mind? Like, oh yeah, that was one big thing that...
There's a couple. So I think the sort of elevator pitches, or the practice that we had, where we all had to sit down and talk to somebody and make these kinds of things that you wouldn't normally do or think to do. At least when I was in school, they didn't have as much emphasis on these things as now. I think schools are kind of starting to figure that out. And then also hearing from artists about how they organize the financial side of their ensemble was really, it was especially for me, because I'm actually the one who organizes all of our projects and fundraisers and does all that stuff for the Catalyst Quartet. It was really, really illuminating and wonderful to see the different ways that people do that. So that really helped us kind of figure out how we wanted to move forward.
And I think one thing we've noticed in a cohort of artists, say there's 3 or 5 ensembles and soloists in a group of YPCA cohort, right? And that cohort is both learning from folks that come in and talk to them who might know specifically about it. Steve served as a mentor a lot to pair up with groups and artists and figure out what help he could offer, what their questions were. The power of cohort is huge, right? And they also then are very much learning from each other, because I imagine some groups are like, oh yeah, we got that figured out, and you're like, whoa, okay, we don't, right? And vice versa, and those sorts of things. And I think it's a lesson for all of us, right? The power of being in cohorts, creating them yourself even, right? And trying to be like, how do we learn from each other and continue to move our practices in the arts forward? And Steve, you've been involved for a minute. You've been a mentor. What benefits have you found from working with emerging artists? Or however you'd like to address this whole thing.
Oh, okay. So I looked at this, I looked at what the blurb was here for all of you to be here, and it talked about strategies and benefits. And I wanted to preface by saying that being in a small liberal arts 4-year undergraduate institution in a very rural community, we do not have conservatory. We do have music majors, very few, and I don't think they have the aspiration of being Yitzhak Perlman or Yo-Yo Ma or artists like that. So what I try to focus on is how to connect with people at a different level. How can we bring in the artist and leverage what they can bring, but not necessarily a masterclass, finding other ways to reach community members. So I also want to preface by saying, while this program is about, this session is about classical music, what I'm going to share, I believe, and for me, applies to any art form. And so that you can think about how this applies to just anything that you're considering as a presenter or a manager. But when I think about strategies, working with emerging artists, I think about how I can better serve the community, how to nurture the emerging artists themselves to be more part of a conversation, how to partner with the campus or community groups, how to find people in the community that we can work with to make it meaningful. Again, so if I'm taking master classes, pretty much off the table, although I do always go to the music faculty and say, does anyone have something like, and their typical response is, can we have the musicians talk about what it's like to tour? Which is great, but to me, that's not gonna get them to want to come and see the program and be inspired, and especially if they're probably not going to be touring artists themselves. So how we can partner with the campus and community, how to strengthen trust and relationships with agents and managers. Believe it or not, relationships are important among managers and art agents and presenters and artists. Artists are in the middle. We're brokering the artist and the audience. That's what we're here to do. As a presenter, I'm representing the community. As an agent manager, they're representing the artist. We are trying to be the matchmaker and bring them together. So how can we do that the best? And if we can be successful and we're building our audience, so can that agent to be continuing that. And then personally, it helps me look at, in terms of strategy, building a community and institutional trust and create programs that are meaningful to help build audiences, and then also nurture my own professional creativity. I've mentored probably 13 different individual musicians or ensembles over the years through this program. And I start out by saying every time, I hope you get out of what we're going to do as much as I'm going to get out of it, because I learn so much from the artists and what they're exploring and what their challenges are and the directions they're heading to help advance me, to help advance the field. And I can talk about benefits.
Please.
Okay.
Why not?
Well, why not? Because I just clicked my, there we go. So I looked at benefits with working with emerging artists from an institutional standpoint, that we have more opportunities to be creative and work with the artists to meet our program and institutional goals. Operationally, bottom line, I hate to say it, and I love to say it, working with emerging artists means that chances are the artist fee is going to be a lot less than if you're going to be working with an established artist. And I use that because classical music is not the #1 seller on our series. When we have Broadway, dance, theater, jazz, all these different programs, but it can be. I still can leverage working with emerging artists to help with my bottom line. And also creating a fair fee, working with the artist or managers to represent the artist as well. So I'm not trying to pull their share away, I'm just trying to keep us existing. So institutional operational benefits for partnerships. So again, since I'm not going to necessarily use master classes as an activity to bring to the community as part of the performance, I try to work with community agencies. I work with, if you're on a college campus, different departments. I love working with the athletics department. I love working with the science department. Working with the music and theater department is low-hanging fruit. That's like what you should know you can get to if you really need to. And that's where I go first, like I said, because that's where the people are connected. But when I get to work with the track and field team and the cross-country team, because I am bringing in an artist who I found out is an Ironman triathlete, that makes it more special. And I'm not talking about the arts, we're talking about performance. And we have a conversation about performance with those students. And I guarantee, because I've seen this, that those students who then see the performance after they're engaging with the artist about performance will walk out of there with bigger smiles on their faces and a deeper connection to having met that person, not necessarily artist, that person, that human being, and having that connection during the concert. So we also benefit the artist because we can help them expand what the idea of engagement can be, and we can help them add that to their toolbox. So this artist that I was talking about, the pianist who was a triathlete, or is one, he He said, I'm going to use this in the future. I'm going to pitch this so that we can add that to my list of activities so that presenters will have an idea, an aha moment like, oh, I could do that with our track team or our high school track team or whomever. So it's an opportunity for them to benefit as well. And then our audiences. We're bringing in people who, if I'm working with a yoga community, or mindfulness community, or the athletes, or the library, or I'm working on a project now that's not directly with emerging artists, but from the community standpoint, I'm working with a substance abuse organization in our community. Then if I'm working with all of these folks who aren't necessarily interested in the arts, I'm getting them into the building, or I'm getting them connected as a first step. So we are building audiences. And then again, personally, I benefit because I know I'm advancing the presenting field and I'm nurturing artists by thinking beyond just the masterclass.
Thank you, Steve. I think the power of relationships are so much what all of our lives are just basically about. So finding ways to nurture them and build them over time with multiple people is great. And one thing that I find really helpful is often, it can be very beneficial to show the intention, right, of both the presenter and the artist. Sometimes the intention in a formal performance environment is not as clear, right, or what you have a more expansive opportunity to talk about what you're trying to do in the world. Those sorts of things in other environments to chat, even if it's about, right, I'm a triathlete and how you train and things like that. It shows how that integrates into the artistic practice and just all of our practices at life. I want to talk to Ichun about SOZO. Can you tell us a bit about what SOZO does? SOZO is a remarkable organization in our field, and we'll go from there.
Sure. SOZO is a international arts agency, contemporary arts agency and incubator. We operate in the intersection of social impact, technology, and culture. We turned into a 501c3 nonprofit organization last January, but artist management and producing are still remaining our core business for sure. Very quickly, 3 pillars of what we do. One of the artisan projects are the rosters that you saw on our website. So we like to say it's genre agnostic. So across everything, dance, music, new media, thought leadership, and we do performances from PAC residencies to like gala and grand openings of corporate spaces. Second is creative producing and curatorial advisory. This one, we partner with artists who are not on our roster and also corporate and cultural and civic entities. So just give you a sense of who we work with. Recently, partners ranging from Lincoln Center, Apollo Theater. We're also the partners with Yo Schwarzman Center when they open. Also the Google X when they do this back to campus after COVID kind of event. We are the producer for that. And I would say the last one, the third pillar, is probably the most relevant to this crowd, is coaching and training. We have SOZO Fellowship, which is geared toward emerging to mid-career artists. We got funding from Mellon Foundation to do a 3-year pilot, and we're in the 2nd year right now. Each cohort is 6 months, completely virtual, and it really is aiming at equipped artists to think about how to run your own small business and focusing on entrepreneurship and sustainability. So we pull experts from not only the arts, but also startup, finance, wellness, and commercial sectors to really hone in on your skill to not only looking, like you said, not only just your craft, but also how are you going to build these relationships, build these ideas that can connect with different sectors.
So if you haven't checked out SOZO.com or wherever
SOZOmedia.com.
SOZOmedia.com, remarkable things, and the artists involved in the cohort that have just been announced or in the last few months. Really, really fascinating groups of artists. What criteria do you consider as you decide to work with, either in whatever relationship you might be entering into with a group of artists, what criteria do you consider?
I see like so many of my mentors down here. So if you have different criteria than me, please add to that. I'll just speak to my own experience, or when I look at emerging artists, what matters most to me. Of course, first and foremost is artistic excellence, but I think with YPCA, they did a great job selecting groups that are already at certain level, so that part of the job is already being done. Secondly, I like to use the word uniqueness, which is not a very unique word, but how do you actually set yourself apart? And I understand, like as a former classical musician myself, the tone and the performance and all these things. Intonation, that's, of course important, but at this, I guess in this presenting or like business, like Steve said, what kind of connection can you make with cross-campus partners? What kind of programs can you actually bring outside or beyond proscenium performance is very important to me. And I believe it's very important for presenters when they are looking at artists to present. For me, also diversified income stream is very, very important. Some people may say, oh, classical music are not capable of doing this, but I don't agree at all. I think if you are able to find collaborations per se, like is this going to appeal to a corporate gig? Is this going to appeal to a commercial opportunity? These are the ideas that you can think of. And I will also encourage to look into different projects that that can garner foundational funding. A lot of, for example, Doris Duke Foundation has this arts and technology, which really is based on music and jazz. And if you are able to find a connection that meaningfully use technology to advance your own classical music craft, then that's something that you can garner quite a bit of support in the field as well. And I also, talking about like diversified income, I want somebody who is proactive and who wanted to work with me to unapologetically make art and apologetically make money. So this is the attitude that we, at least for me, I think that's very important, running a business in the field. And lastly, really, personality. Maybe not lastly, importantly. Like somebody who can work with me sincerely, bounce ideas, and not a jerk. And that was really my criteria.
Not a jerk, people. There we go. Fundamental important thing. I'm gonna give a little more space for Karla and Steve, and I'm looking to y'all. So think about formulating anything you might want to share or question or whatever you would like to put into the room. Karla, I have some questions in mind. Do you have anything that, based on what we've been doing here, that you would like to share? Or would you like me to pose a question?
Go ahead and pose a question.
I was thinking, so Catalyst Quartet was part of YPCA 2011, and I think the experience you had sounds very powerful. Do you think, how has that changed to this point? Like, if a group going through YPCA in 2027, when we intend to have another cohort going, what does that look like? How has that changed in 16 or 18 years?
Well, I mean, are you asking me my opinion of what you think has changed in the field?
I think your opinion, and
yes.
You're also teaching and working with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot that has changed, a lot, and I think that maybe this is a controversial statement, but I think that in a way, having gone through COVID, kind of shook our industry a little bit forward in a very necessary way, in terms of the fact that it kind of highlighted how behind we were on certain media aspects like video and all this kind of stuff. And so I think that in terms of like what are we looking like, what is so different now, it's how people consume. The way people consume things is completely different. It's an ever-changing, fast-paced world, and sort of like the markers for what is impactful is also different. And so I think that if you were asking me what I think would be, useful to a young ensemble is to be thinking in that way, of thinking the ever-changing world. How can you, because I don't like saying become relevant. I mean, how do you, that's a terrible thing to say to an artist, but like how can you make an impact in this world? And I mean, there's so many layers and I could go on for a long time about it. But, even as much as like, for example, the leading reason a record label will choose now a classical artist to be like their, star person they want to pluck out of nowhere actually has much more to do with how many YouTube followers they have than it has to do with anything at all with what they're producing as an artist. And so that is a really eye-opening thing and a very different way of measuring where you are in the world. And I think that everybody needs to think about that.
Yes, I mean, when did YouTube even start, right? Like, it's really young,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's younger than Yipka. Yipka's comes up about the time the internet did, right? Like the World Wide Web is a mid-90s thing before it really became a thing, right? So that is interesting. And I tell you, man, I don't know nothing about record labels, right? Like I work in live performance and it's a fascinating thing, right? But it's such an important intersectional place too.
And I have another side thought about this. I like to think a lot about like, how do you create longevity in a chamber music career? Like what, we don't have like a 10-year track or anything like that. Like how do you actually, continue to thrive and continue to move forward? And there's two parts to this that I think there's like the necessary part and then the artistic like need that you have in your soul. So you have to produce these things that mean something to you, but you also need to continue to garner attention, or rather just stay in people's minds. And so one of the ways that we kind of have to do this is to produce albums, which I think also is something that people should be thinking about. Maybe CDs and albums are not what they should be anymore. We should be thinking about what is the next thing. But you have to do that to continue. But there's no support for producing these projects. So then, you see what I'm saying? So then there's a whole sort of like, you have to have a business mindset and then your artistic vision, and to be able to put those together to then continue to grow and continue to move forward.
In the most recent Catalyst Quartet record, how did you make it work?
Well, we've been on a journey for a long time. We were the weird ones a while back.
We're here for the weird ones. Let's go.
We were the weird ones a lot. When we first started, a lot of presenters felt like what we were programming was, oh, no, we can't do that. And that kind of stuff. And our most recent album was part of a bigger project that we started in 2017, 2018 called the Uncovered Project. And this is where we decided that we needed to record all of the string quartet applicable repertoire by historically important Black composers. And this was a long time coming, something that we kept, it's an observation that we saw in the world, that these pieces didn't have the right is the wrong word to say, but didn't have enough recordings for people to take risks and want to program them. And that included presenters and artists and all these things. And of course, like when you set out to do something, you don't realize how expensive that's going to be. And at first, everybody's like, great idea, good luck. And it was crazy to raise money for this. But we pushed and we pushed and we did between private funding, grants, and just support of people that love us and are very sweet. And then a couple presenters who worked with me like so long on proposals and all this kind of stuff, who I love so much and I'm so thankful to. We made it work. But I will tell you, every single time we brought, because there's four volumes. Every year we released a different one. Every time we got to the recording studio, we did not know if we had enough money to produce it, to be able to get it out. And that includes the last one, which was nominated for Grammy. And now the most recent one, we're about to release, but we're still short. But somehow we make it work.
So you're able to incrementally, you've recorded it, and then
Yeah.
eventually you master, eventually
Yeah.
you might package or not. And
Yeah,
all
and
those
then,
sorts.
PR, which is really, really important, and that's very expensive.
Yeah.
So these things that, of course, I'm the person who does these things for my group, so of course it's on my mind.
That is awesome. My friends here, do you have anything you'd like to say to us? And we don't have mics out there, so I will either repeat what you say if it is short, or you can come down here and grab this microphone. Yes, who are you?
My name is Catherine. I run a two dance organizations in Chicago. And I'd love to hear some more on what you all consider current the changes in impact and how 10 years ago what one needed to do as an artist may or may not be different than today, both from a presenting standpoint and from an audience.
So thank you very much. So I will try to repeat it properly. A question about how desired changes of impact have changed over, say, the last 10 years or so, both the impact that artists might be trying to have or trying to figure out, and presenters and all of y'all. Anyone have a first response?
Oh, I'll go.
Go.
Let me think for a second. My first thought was, we talk about classical music, and you can think of this as dance, the dance community as well. We have been struggling for longer than probably everyone in this room has been alive to build audiences in some of these disciplines, these genres, and classical and dance in particular are some of them. And so it's not new, but the situations change. And I've heard this, I've been in the industry this is my fourth decade, and for all this time I hear people say, well, that demographic is dying, and we have to rebuild the new one. And that's great. I mean, that should be with everything, but that's not new. We all age out at some point, and we all have new people coming in at some point. It's a matter of what's relevant at that time, and technology has become really relevant at the time. And I'm even thinking about COVID and how we were able to make a complete shift in how we thought about engaging our communities without actually having people in venues and people on stage, and how we could do that. And I created a series called Culture Plus, and it was a virtual series that would match thought leaders, artists, whomever, with the plus side of our community, and community members, faculty, whomever, about culture plus some topic, and every month was a different topic, and I looked for what was relevant to us. And being in Kentucky, the horse industry is relevant, and being in Kentucky, the bourbon industry is relevant. So I'm trying to put together programs that would do that. I'm thinking right now that I don't think dance was a part of that. But we did include dance programming in our student activities. online, and we worked with a company in Louisville who their mission was and is to work with any ability with movement. And we partnered with them, and we partnered with a Lexington theater company, children's theater company. We partnered with a local person from Japan who taught about origami. So we did each of these programs that we then off. So we offered to the schools who would normally come to the matinees all these activities, and I was so proud that we were able to partner with the dance company because they didn't have as big an audience, and we were providing them with a brand new audience in their community, and it was all free, so we paid them and they were doing it anyway, but we paid them so that we could then offer it, and we also made it available to anybody. And we saw such a larger growth in the statewide attendance through that program. So it was a way that we looked at the environment in the current situation and how we could work. That's a really small example, but just trying to think of what's happening today that helps us. And the internet, technology, all of that is becoming something pretty predominant, obviously, in our world.
Thank you. Ichun, do you have thoughts there?
Working? Hi. To answer that question, I think I immediately put my producer hat on. And by thinking about impact, I think about a lot of times, especially when you're saying like garner funding and all that, how to measure impact has changed quite a bit. Just because we work both for philanthropy with foundations and also with corporate, my observation is that for corporate, definitely keep your stats like very closely. You need to show how many cities you have been, how many people you have reached, how many concerts and all these. Like make sure that it's really, really, really up to date and really accurate. But there is a shift in philanthropy actually is trying to move these impact measurement away from numbers. So I would say for one foundation that we work with is a tech company on the West Coast. They're more looking into a small group of people, but what kind of impact that you made in terms of their mental status. It's a really, I guess, abstract way of measuring these, but think about ways and really paying attention to how, when you make proposal and when you make pitches, like which one actually makes sense to the people that you make. And oftentimes there are pretty, sometimes subtle, but in my opinion, a lot of times very, very clear indication in their mission statement and in their recent news to see how they measure their own impact. And then if you mimic that, a lot of times I find success in it. Yeah.
Awesome. You can try.
Okay, I'm going to try tagging onto that as well as in a more relevant, just like Ichun said, trying to find that relevancy of what's happening in today's environment, whether it's the environment, whether it's mindfulness and wellness and mental health. And there are a lot of things that are happening that we see as trends emerging. And I think that happens constantly. It's evolving all the time. And whether you create a piece because of, or as a response to a situation, or you have a piece that actually already touches upon a situation, making that connection and trying to find that partnership in the community is a way to go and a way to actually become, I do like using the word relevant, but not in the sense of if you don't think some way you're irrelevant, but in the sense that how do we as arts organizations and artists, how do we make sure that the programming we do is relevant to the community or segments of the community?
And I am going to ask my colleague to run this microphone around in a minute. I think additional to relevance, one construct we use a lot at Green Music Center is the idea of compelling, right? Because what is compelling that an artist is making to really deeply understand this artistic practice, and what is it about, right? It's about lots and lots of things, but to try to understand those things, and then what the heck matters in Sonoma County, California, right? And how do we draw a connection between those things? I have found over the years, and it's the lick of mine that I use, like, how do we define what compelling is? And it's different in every situation. It also allows us to embrace the local, like everything, right? There are different reasons that things are compelling, and there's nothing more compelling than young students on our stages, right? There's nothing more compelling than the Catalyst Quartet on our stage, right? There's just such a wide variety of things we can do there. So that is one of my riffs, and we also are in the horse and booze business in Sonoma County. Who else would like to say something?
Hello. I just had a question about an emerging quartet. We represent an emerging quartet with a lot of momentum right now, and they're grappling with the balance between standard classical programming and furthering their mission to program living and underrepresented composers. The agency and artists want the quartet to fill standard quartet slots at presenters rather than like a new music slot. Do you have any advice for how we can advocate for their programming to presenters as an agency without like overstepping? Like, I don't want to tell a presenter how to like do more community engagement or whatever.
I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about this, because I have a pretty strong reaction to that. I personally, because we were that quartet, and we had very strong ideas about what we want to do. Just to give you a recap of what the Catalyst Quartet does. We don't believe in presenting any specific genre. We actually want to create an experience, a human connection, and want to tell a story. And whether that's a concrete story or want to highlight something, but we always build our programs in that way. And then from this idea unfolds a program of music. So that can be all kinds of things. Like, I'll give an example. One of my favorites was when Pete Seeger died. We wanted to do an homage to the American folk songs, so we did an arrangement of these 4 American folk songs from that era, and then we built the program around it with folk songs from all across the world, including, of course, there was a standard work on there, but one that we felt worked with it. But in any case, my reaction to this is that your ensemble needs to figure out I think an ensemble needs to stay true to who they are and figure out first what it is that they want to present and what their identity is. And that could be, that can be any number of things. I think you run a lot of risk as a young group saying yes to everything. Saying, yes, I'll play Brahms, and yes, I'll play this new music piece, and yes, I'll do this, and yes, and then you don't have an identity, and then people don't know exactly what it is you're doing, like, oh, that quartet, and there's like a lot of quartets out there. So I think defining what you are, who you are, what you want to do is number one first before you can talk repertoire like that. And I know it's tricky because when you're first starting out, sometimes people don't want to take a risk. But if you can spend enough time being a little bit firm about what you want to do, and then people know what you are, and then can trust you, then I think then you're going to get somebody somewhere. But that's my feeling.
I think that is a wonderful response. I would encourage us presenters as well. I try to have a mindset of sort of like, what do you want to make, right? Not, this is what I want you to make. It's also a mindset that we're trying to give to our audience, which is honestly a hell of a lot harder. But there is a certain amount of basic assumption, I think, in ticket sales at any rate, of sort of like, I'm buying a ticket, I'm coming, I want you to do this, right? Like, play the hits, whatever that might be, and trying to shift that to we are here to experience what this artist most wants to share with us right now, right? I think there are tons of benefits in that. There are tons of challenges in that as well. But honestly, little of what we do has truly like hits to play, right? Like we're we're in a really special environment, and our ability to ask artists, what are you trying to do, and try to find paths to support that, I think has served our presenting practice really well over time. But it is not without challenges, right? I don't have sort of a mindset of like, oh, we do 2 of those and 4 of those, and we have lots of different things we're trying to cover in the course of years of performances at Green Music Center. But the more we can kind of respond to like, what do you want to make? I feel like the more special it has been.
I just want to look at this from a completely different point of view perspective. And we are all, no matter what part of it, and we've talked about being a product, and we've talked about working with emerging artists because it's going to be less expensive to the bottom line. So money is a big factor. However, if we really think about it, our industry is about storytelling. And if you're an ensemble, if you're a performing arts center, if you're a management company, knowing what that story is and being true to your stories, I think is going to be really key. That if you're responding to the audience saying that they want a certain type of programming, then seeing if everyone feels that way, or a majority, trying to find out if, well, because I hear the same thing. I try to blur the line of genres and I don't care to use the word classical. I try to find other ways to use to convey what people are going to experience, because a lot of times they blur. Sometimes it's very traditional, but the story that I'm going to present includes the repertoire. And they're going to see Beethoven, they're going to see Mozart, they're going to get that familiarity. A different story is going to have a different idea. It might actually have a theme instead of listing the repertoire. And sometimes it's even the photograph, just trying to convey what people might come to see. But I'm trying to figure out, because if there's a way to, if the community wants something, I certainly want to help provide that for them, because if they actually want it, because everyone says, I want this, and then they don't come. Not everyone, but they're a group of people. But if they actually truly do want to come, and we're trying to build an audience, how can we satisfy those who are already coming and already being patrons and bringing in others who aren't? And I've actually, through this conference, written several times notes that, hey, when we're going to market something, I want you to, this is what my conversation with our marketing team later this week when I'm home, when we do our public promotion, even if it's social media to the public, let's look at who that audience is. And when we're going to do it with the students, let's shift it around. And if it's a theme, really focus on the theme and things that they might not know about, but ways to get them to feel like this is for me. And it still could be the same exact program, but we're trying to spin it in different ways that it'll be attractive to those. So that way the artist isn't losing, they're remaining true to their voice. We're finding ways to represent that. And going back to emerging artists, we can help shape as managers, as presenters, as mentors, whomever. We can help shape what that unique voice is. And I'm not saying that I'm going to shape an artist's voice. I can help lead and talk with the manager and say, I am really trying to work on mental health, and how can we do that? And that manager says, I have this string quartet that's really been focusing on that. And they've done a couple of activities or whatever. And I think that's a way to really make those connections so that we can keep serving those who are coming and paying readily, regularly, as well as building new audiences.
And I'm going to come to Monica and for the last time, and then we have a big finish because we're getting down to it.
I just sort of wanted to respond to that question a little bit, having worked the majority of my life with emerging classical musicians, I think, especially for classical music with chamber music with quartets, you have two different types of presenters. You have your classic string quartet or chamber music series where majority, say they have 6 concerts, 5 of them are string quartets, and maybe one of them is a piano trio. And that's the different artists. Where you have university presenters, that's where most emerging artists, I think across any field, are going to find more openness to who you are, what you want to do. And like with often the straight chamber music presenters, you're going to have like, oh, well, we have one spot for a young quartet and it's in 3 seasons from now. So what are you going to do now then? Well, you don't know, but you can probably flip that program or merge that program into something more that quartet wants to do at that point. But right now, I would say, even though a lot of presenters are open, you're still going to come across this wall where, for lack of the blue-haired presenters, the little old ladies in Connecticut who are fabulous, but they said, this is what my audience wants and this is what they don't want. And you kind of have to be the ensemble while still being true to yourself. They want to see who you are first and foremost, so it's about the trust of you as an ensemble. So I think that there are ways to do both, but you still have to be very aware of there are certain presenters that are not going to be so open to expanding their audience's thought process, for lack of a better way to put it.
I greatly appreciate that. And because my practice is my practice, right? And there's so many other practices and all of your practices. I wish we could keep talking, but this conference has a huge schedule here. So one of the best conference sessions I ever saw was like 3 hints, 2 tips, and a trick. It was actually really deep and worked very well. I used a similar format when I made a speech at my brother's wedding. During the ceremony, honestly, that was kind of stupid. Poor kid. But I wanted to ask my friends here to offer us a tip or a piece of advice or even a trick that we can take with us into the world and add to our practices going forward. And I don't know who wants to hit that first. I love it.
Mine is actually very close to what we discussed, is stay who you are. And what Monica mentioned, I think, yes, there are people who are not going to love what you have. And I think that's perfectly fine. You don't have to appeal to everybody, and you're going to find like-minded people. And for me, that my job for my artists and for the things I produce is to find these like-minded ones. I don't need to convince the ones that are fundamentally not going to align with me. We're not car salespeople. It's not like insurance you talk about 5 times, people will change their mind. A lot of times it's a very, very subjective environment or industry that we work in. So just really be specific about what you wanted to do and stick to that and make sure that you stay informed in who these people you can approach.
I love that. Mine is a little bit practical and boring, sorry, and artist forward, but I love, especially when I'm teaching, I talk about this a lot, but I try to apply it to myself, is that like little goals lead to bigger goals that lead to the biggest goals. And so just thinking way farther ahead than you think you need. Because everything always takes way more time, and to really create an impact and make something really wonderful, whether that's a project that's going to be staged or an album or a commissioning project or whatever it is that you're working on, that's just going to, it needs time, and everything needs time. So just thinking way far ahead.
So I've been talking a lot about community engagement and working with emerging artists in terms of going beyond the master class or once bringing them to a community. So I've just got several tips I'll go by quickly. Speak directly with the artist if possible. Ask emerging artists about their passions beyond music. Discuss the ideas you have with the agent or manager, especially if you're not able to access speaking directly with the artist. Think about which segments of your community or campus might connect with the artist's passion and talk with those leaders of those groups about how to make that connection. Attend showcases and talk with the artists afterward. So have that conversation. We have a great opportunity at APAP to actually talk with artists, and they are eager. They are here wanting to be booked, and they want to be seen. They want their story to be told. Have that conversation and see if there might be a connection. And then finally, stalk an artist's Instagram and TikTok accounts. I mean, I've learned so much about artists by looking at what they post through social media, and either directly about their music and their program, their art, or, I mean, how many of you have ever presented a solo classical accordionist from China? Okay. Yeah, so I did last year. And what I ended up doing, stalking her Instagram, was saw that she was a certified yoga instructor. And I said, would you be willing to do a meditation class to bring people through your certification, through that passion, to do an activity? And she said, I've never had my two worlds collide like that before, but I would love to. I've never thought about that. So we did. The thing I did not tell the public was that at the end of the meditation, when everyone's lying down with their eyes closed, they were going to hear an accordion piece. If I had told you in advance that was going to happen, you wouldn't have come, probably. But after, when they did it, it worked. It was brilliant. I mean, they came to the performance the next night. So because they connected. So trying to figure out those connections, I can't say enough about trying to figure out what an artist does, especially an emerging artist, that sets them apart. Just like Karla says, you know, what sets you apart or Ichun said, before, other than I want to be the best X.
We go 6 tips from Steve over there showing off with all his tips. I love it. Well, I want to thank you, Steve, Karla, Ichun. Thank you so much. Really grateful for your thoughts today. And thanks all of you. We're living in a moment that's a whole thing, right? Like it's hard for me to access optimism and to try to, because here we are. But I'm really grateful that all of your labor is in service of hope. It's in service of love, right? Like we are creating great things in the world. And I'm really, really thankful that y'all are doing that. And thank you for being part of APAP. Cheers.